guys, it's Sarah, and today we are going to talk about all the books I read in the month of September. September ended up being a really good reading month for me. I ended up reading 11 books, which I was kind of shocked at by the end. I didn't think I was going to get to that many, and it ended up working out really well. I did 2 readathons. I did the series September that I helped host with Krista from Books and Jams, and I did Becca's Bookoplathon, which was a lot of fun, and then I did read a couple of books that were not included in either one of those. So I'm going to lump these together this time. Usually I go in the order that I read them, but this time, since I had so many things going on and I want to talk about them individually a little bit, I'm going to lump them in like groups, and then we'll just go from there. So we are going to start off with the books that I read that were not part of either one of the readathons. Okay, the first one I want to talk about is a book that I finished in September. This is a book I started in July. I did a read along with this book, and I definitely feel a huge sense of accomplishment with this one because it is the biggest book on my bookshelves that I have, and I have now read it, which is awesome, and that is Les Miserables. This is by Victor Hugo. This is the classic book that the Broadway show Les Mis is based on, and I had always wanted to read it because Les Mis is one of my favorite Broadway shows ever. I know every single word to every single song in that show. I've seen it multiple times on stage, and I would go again in a heartbeat. I love the anniversary edition that was on PBS a long time ago. And I love the story. I love the characters, and I wanted to read the source material. And now I have. And I will say I really, really loved it. I listened to this on audio because, hello. And the version that I listened to, there are multiple different audiobook of this. And the one that I listened to was narrated by George Guidall. And I thought he did a great job. Now, this, okay, I did really love it. I settled on a 4-star for this one. And the reason I had to knock off a star is because Victor Hugo, while he gave me the Les Mis story, he gave me those characters I love so much. He gave me a more in-depth look into the characters and their lives and the stories and the scenes that I knew so well. I was like, oh, I remember seeing this scene played out on stage, but it was such more in depth in the book, obviously. And we got to see more definitely about Marius, which I thought was really interesting. His whole relationship with his family that we didn't really get in the play. So that was interesting, but also I think Marius was probably my least favorite part as far as the sections in the book, just because it kind of dragged on and on and on. So I liked the parts about Marius where we're learning more about his family and his background and where he came from. But then there were parts in Marius's book where it just went off on tangents all the time about things that were not important. And that's where Hugo started to kind of lose me a little bit. And he did that throughout the book. The only tangent I think that I really enjoyed or I thought brought a little bit more to the story was the stuff about Napoleon, because Napoleon's not really depicted in the play at all, but obviously he was a big part of the French Revolution. So there are parts about Napoleon in here, which those parts I didn't mind, but then he would just go off on these subjects and these occurrences that had nothing to do with the book. And I was like, why are we talking about this? And he started to lose me a little bit. And then once we got back into the story, I was back in it. So that's why I knocked a star off, because there was just a lot of that happening, which is why it's so long. So I could definitely understand why people would want to prefer to read an abridged copy of this, because it kind of cuts all that extra stuff out. But I'm glad that I read the entire thing. I have the entire book in my brain now, and I'm really grateful for that. So huge thanks to the ladies who hosted the Les Mis along. It was Christy, Naomi, and Victoria. I will leave all their channels linked down below if you guys are interested in checking them out. But yeah, I'm really grateful to them for doing this and giving me that push I needed to actually read this book. And now I can say that I have. The next book I read that was not part of the readathons is The Only Plane in the Sky. This is by Garrett M. Granth, and this is a nonfiction book about 9/11. It is an oral history of 9/11. The reason it's called an oral history is because this book is full of testimonies from people from that day. People who were in the thick of it, rescue workers, people who survived it, they were in the buildings, people who were covering it on television in real time when it was happening, people who are relatives of people who have passed in the tragedy, people who had loved ones on one of the planes that flew into the buildings. Every single person on every single one of those planes died that day. People who were in the Pentagon. Just so many people in this book telling their stories and telling about things that were happening. And let me tell you, this is one of the most incredible books I've ever read in my entire life. This is top 10. This is definitely one of my favorite books of the year, hands down, not even a question. I sobbed my way through this book. I cried multiple times. I mean, tears streaming. I had to put it down because I was getting tears on the pages. It was incredible. I listened to this audiobook while I read along in here, and I highly recommend that you do that because the audiobook is incredible. It's a full cast. Every single person in here is a different narrator. Some of them narrate their own. Not everybody does, but some of them do. Just the listening to it and the reading along was incredible. And then you obviously there's pictures in here and images and stuff. There are also parts that I did not realize this going in, and this is the first time I cried, was there are actual transcripts in here from the plane, people on the planes realizing something's happening and they are calling for help, and you listen to those phone calls. And I never heard these before, and they play the actual phone calls. It's not voice acting. You hear the actual thing. And then throughout the book, there are times like that where you're getting actual audio of people communicating and trying to figure out where these planes are and, who's in danger, who's not, who's a threat, who's not, because nobody knows what's happening. And you're listening to military trying to scramble airplanes to get into the air to help people. And just, oh man, those parts really got me because it was real. Like that, these are the actual people talking and they're playing, the recordings of what was happening on that day. Oh man, it was a lot. I also highly recommend you pair this book with the documentary that is on National Geographic. You can watch that through Disney Plus, or you can also access it on Hulu. And it's called 9/11 One Day in America, because some of the people that are in that documentary are also in this book. So I read this book first and then I watched the documentary, and it was really cool because I could see the faces of people who I had just read about, and it just added a whole nother layer on top of it. So, one thing that really got me in this book is that I did not realize how bad it was at the Pentagon, because when we think about 9/11 or hear about 9/11, it's usually New York. But the Pentagon was really bad, you guys. I mean, the things that happened to the people in that building, in that wing where that plane hit, I was speechless. I was like, oh my gosh. And hearing about the fear that people had that day because they don't know what's happening. At points they were running for their lives because there was something in the air coming towards them and they didn't know if that was another plane coming to hit the building. And, everyone was panicking, obviously. And I just didn't realize that the Pentagon was as devastating as it was, because that wasn't as nationally televised as New York was. But man, you guys, it gives you a whole new perspective on that as well. So this book really taught me a lot about that day, opened my eyes to things I wasn't aware of. Definitely pick this up if you haven't, if it's something that you think you can get to. It is an incredibly emotional book, but I feel like everybody should read this at some point in their lives. And this book is life-changing. Obviously, 5 stars. And the next one that I finished up in the month of September is Atomic Habits. This is by James Clear. This is a nonfiction book about habit forming and kind of changing your mindset around your habits and how to create lasting habits and all that stuff. And that's something I have been wanting to focus on this year. But I will say that I did not let this book work for me the way that I think it could work for me. And that's because I picked it up in January I picked this book up in January and I just finished it in September. Really, guys, I would work on it and I would take notes along the way. I have a notebook where I was writing notes down. I would work on it for a little bit and then I would put it down for like a month. And then I'd be like, I need to get back to that. I need to get back to that. And then I would get back to it and then I would put it down for a month and a half. I need to get back to that. I need to get back to that. And I finally finished it up in September. And I just, you guys, I don't know why I did that. Because when I was writing notes down and when I was reading through these chapters, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. That makes so much sense. I can absolutely apply that to my life. That makes so much sense. But I haven't applied anything so far because I think because I took so much time away from it, I didn't let anything sink in. I didn't actually take any actions on any of these things. So to me, I feel like even though I think this book is wonderful and I think it could really make a difference in my life, I didn't let it. So that's my fault. And when I rated it, so I gave it 4 stars. But this is a book I'm going to go back to and I'm going to read it again. And I'm going to actually make it work for me and not put it down for months at a time. I'm actually next time I pick this up, I'm going to actually go through it and study it and focus on it, and let it work for me because I think that it really could. So I feel like I did this book a disservice. And I apologize. I apologize to the book. I'm very sorry. So I will pick this up again at some point. But I did at least reach the end of it. So it's me, guys. It's me. Okay, so now we're going to move into the readathons. First, I will talk about series September. So I'll show you all the books that I read for that. We had a bingo board that I used, and I really enjoyed reading a lot of these books from that. I did pretty well. And the first one that I wanted to knock out really quickly was Obsidio. This is book number 3 in the Illuminae files. This is by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This is a young adult science fiction trilogy. And I read book number 3. So I have finished that trilogy now. These I highly recommend on audiobook as well. And this is another one that I think that you should listen to and read along simultaneously, because these books, all 3 of them, have emails, text messages, different types of mixed media in it. There's transcripts. There is pages that look a whole lot different. Let me find a really good one. And there's things like this in here that are really cool. And when you're reading the book, this makes an image that goes along with what is going on in that scene. And it's a really, really cool reading experience. So I definitely highly recommend the audiobook as well. It's a full cast, so it's fantastic. And I think the audiobook helps bring kind of the tone of the book and the snarkiness in it, if you will, to life in here. And I don't think I would have gotten that same experience had I read it just with my eyes. So definitely, recommend doing that. I thought it was fantastic. And this one just kind of wraps up the series. So basically, this is science fiction set in space, set on spaceships. And in the first book, there is a planet that is under attack. And you're following 2 people who were in a relationship and they had just broken up on that morning, and then their planet was attacked, so they had to run for safety. And then they're trying to work together because they're realizing that there are things that are happening that are not right and things are not adding up. And, who's actually attacking us? Is it someone that we think that's protecting us? And so they're trying to unravel all these things. And there's also a little bit of an epidemic that happens on one of these spaceships, which was really interesting. And yeah, I loved it. And one of my favorite characters shows back up in here. He is throughout the series as well. He's mostly in the first book, but then he comes back here. It's Ezra, if anyone's interested. But I love him. I love him. And yeah, so this was fantastic. Really, really enjoyed this entire trilogy. My daughter Kaylin is actually wanting to start it here soon. She asked if she could read them, and I said yes. So I'm going to pass these on to her so that she can read them too. But they're so much fun. So I gave this one 5 stars. And this one checked off 2 blocks for me. It was to finish a series and to read a series that you started more than 1 year ago. So I definitely started a series way more than a year ago. The next one that I picked up is Scarlet. This is by Marissa Meyer, and this is book number 2 in the Lunar Chronicles series. And I'm doing a read along with this with some of my friends, and we're reading through the entire Lunar Chronicles this year. And so number 2 was what we read in the month of September. And I really enjoyed this. These are also young adult science fiction. And the first one is Cinder, and it follows a Cinderella retelling, but it's sci-fi. Cinderella's a cyborg. It's even almost like a dystopian sci-fi, which was kind of interesting. And I loved Cinder. I thought it was so much fun. And I also loved this one. This one is a Little Red Riding Hood retelling, and I love the way that this story wove into Cinder's story as well. So this is definitely, like, these books are continuous, so you need to start at the beginning. It's not like you can just pick up book 2 and be fine. No, like, there's characters in here. It's continuing the story from book 1. And I thought this was just so much fun. I love the way that Marissa Meyer is using those fairy tale elements and putting them into these science fiction worlds. I think it's really unique, and I think it's really creative. Like, I'm reading this and I could see the Little Red Riding Hood. Like, I could see that tale happening in here, and, you know, the aspects that she's pulling from it to put in here. It was really interesting to me. I loved Thorn. I need more Thorn in my life. From what I'm hearing, I'm going to get him in the next book a whole lot. And I'm so happy about that because I love him. And I just thought this was a ton of fun. It really, really was. And this one, I was a little up and down on the characters with, like, what they were doing. And I was just like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? Oh, okay, that's why. But no, wait a minute. Aren't you supposed to be like this? No, wait. Oh, that's why. So it's just kind of like, I was all over the place with it, and I had all these theories, and I was like, what's going on? So it was a ton of fun. Loving the series so far. Excited to go on to book 3 next month. But yeah, I gave this one 4 stars. This one also checked off 2 boxes for me. So this is the second book in a series, and it is also my most recently started series because I read Cinder last month and then this one. So worked out really nicely for that. And then I read Memento. Now, this is a novella that follows Obsidio, and this one follows kind of the creation of the AI character that is in the Illuminae series. His name is Aiden, and he is so fantastic. He's such a great character. And this is kind of his creation, if you will. It's like his creation story. So you see how he was created, you see how he was developed. You meet characters who are working on him and just kind of how he developed that way. It was very short. I think it was less than 90 pages. I did, again, listen to this through my library. It's only available digitally. It's actually not available in print from what I'm understanding, but I did listen to it and I thought it was a lot of fun. So that was another, 4-star for me for that one. But yeah, and that one checked off to read 2 books in the same series. So I did Obsidio and Memento. So I counted that. And then the last book that I read for Series September was the Bromance Book Club. This is by Lisa K. Adams. This is the first book in her Bromance series. Oh my gosh, you guys. I loved this so much. It was kind of exactly what I needed. It was fun. It was funny. And I couldn't stop listening to it. I did pick this up on audio from my library. And this is narrated by Andrew Iden and Maxwell Caulfield. And this book follows a baseball player. He's a professional baseball player. And he is having some trouble in his marriage. He has just found out a big thing about his wife that he never knew, and it has caused a big rift in them. Like, they're on the verge of separating and on even talking about divorcing. They have 2 children, and he doesn't want to lose her. However, he feels very hurt by the secret that was revealed. And his teammates are seeing him struggle with this, and they don't know why they're having trouble, but they know that they are. And so they say, meet us here at this time. We're going to help you. And he's like, whatever. So he goes because he has nothing else to do, and realizes that they have a book club where they read romance novels to help them with their relationships, to help them be better husbands to their spouses or to their girlfriends. And they take these tips and they take these points of view that they would never have considered before, and they take those into their own relationships to help make them stronger. And he is like, what is this? But then he realizes it works because he starts doing that. He figures he has, everything to gain at this point. And yeah, let me tell you, I laughed out loud so many times during this book. It was so funny. The characters were so great and very real as well. And I did have someone mention that they thought I wouldn't like this book because there's a lot of miscommunication in it. And I will say that there is. However, the main couple in here, there is miscommunication definitely in the beginning. But I could see them hit a point where they're like, why are we lying to each other? Let's just be real. Let's just get everything, even if it hurts to hear, we're just going to say what we feel. And I think that's why this worked for me, because they did hit that point. I think the miscommunication thing for me is if it never hits that point, or if there's like one growing problem throughout the entire book and they never ever talk about it until the very end, that drives me nuts. But they figured this out and they do start having honest conversations with each other, even if they don't want to hear it. So I think that's why, even though this does have miscommunication in it, it still worked for me, if you will. So I guess it depends on the miscommunication for me, which I'm starting to realize in my reading. Like sometimes I can deal with it, sometimes I can't. So I guess it just depends on the book, but this one was fine. And it was seriously just so much fun. And I'm excited to read the rest of the series. So I definitely plan to. And yeah, so I highly recommend this one. And this one filled the block of start a new series because it's the first book. There's also some steam in here, so there's a couple of steamy scenes. I thought they were fantastic, but be wary of that if that's not something you're comfortable with. There are some pretty steamy scenes in here. I have heard the other books are not quite as good as the first one. Like the first one is the strongest, but that's okay. I'm still going to keep going. I do want to keep reading these books. And yeah, I loved it. Okay, so now we're going to move on to Bookoplathon. So I did a few rolls. I think I did 4 total. And the first one that I rolled, I got the prompt to read something with a person or a title. It was like a buzzword. It was like a person or a title and then in the title of the book, a title in the title. So it was like boy, girl, king, queen, husband, wife, brother, sister, stuff like that. So I ended up picking The Good Girl. This is by Mary Kubica. And this is a book that actually Lindsay sent me for our Christmas book exchange. I think the first round that we did. So it took me a very long time to get to this, but I absolutely loved this. This is an adult thriller and it follows a young woman who goes missing, and you are following her family and like trying to figure out why she went missing, where she is, what's going on. So it's this whole case thing and investigation. Now you're getting different perspectives in this book. You are getting a perspective from her mother and how she's dealing with this. You're getting a perspective from the detective who was assigned to this case and him, trying to unravel things and trying to fix things and talking to the family and the mother and all that stuff. So you're getting his perspective. And then you're also getting the perspective of the kidnapper. And it's very, very interesting. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really well done. I did kind of predict a couple things here and there that I thought were going to happen, but I did not predict the ending, which I'm very happy about because I hate it when I can do that, but I didn't. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. I gave it 4 stars. When I finished it, it didn't quite feel like a 5-star read to me. I think maybe because I was able to predict some stuff that was happening, but there were a couple things that happened that surprised me too, which was nice. And I definitely want to read more from her now as an author. So yeah, it was good. And then my second roll, I landed on a new book. So this was a book that is either a brand new release, or it's something that's new to you, or it's something that was really hyped when it was released, but no one's really read it. So that type of thing. So you don't know too much about it still. And for that one, I picked We Are the Brennans. This is by Tracy Lang. And I was sent an ARC of this book when it came out. It came out earlier this year. And so it was actually still a newer release. It came out early August. And so I had heard a lot of people talking about it, though, because it was a Book of the Month selection. So there's a lot of Book of the Month hype around it, but I had not heard about really anybody reading it. I had only heard Audrey from Chapter and Converse read it. I'll leave her link down below. And she was the only one who had read it, and she loved it. Like, she was raving about it. And so that kind of got me really like, ooh, I should maybe pick that one. And it's short, so it was great for a readathon. I loved this book, you guys. This follows an Irish-American family who live in New York. They are very tight. However, something happens to the daughter in this family, and she takes off and moves to California. But nobody knows why. It's not something that she shared with anybody, and she just took off just to basically try to run away from it. And she leaves her entire family and everything she knows behind. A couple years later, she is in a car accident, and her family in New York is called to basically, like, this girl needs help. And so one of her brothers goes out there and convinces her to come back home so that she can recover and, just come back home, basically. So she does. And things come to a head. So she goes back, and she's faced immediately, obviously, with all these things and all these people who are like, what in the world? Why would you do that? Blah, blah, blah. And all these secrets start coming out about the family, and everybody's got secrets. Everybody in this family has some secrets, okay? And they all start coming out, and it's so good, you guys. It's so good. I just was completely caught up in this family's drama and the characters, and I absolutely loved the characters. I just wanted the best for all of them, even though they were being stupid sometimes. I just still wanted them to be okay, and I started really caring about them. And this book is not long, you guys. But so much happens in here, which is a testament to good writing, right? And I wanted things to go a certain way, and I was getting mad when they weren't, and then I was getting happy when they were, and just all these things. And I just completely became obsessed with this family and wanted nothing but the best for them. And I loved it. And yes, there was a lot of secret keeping, obviously, and you're seeing the secrets that they're keeping, as you're getting to know the characters. But at the same time, the communication is still good. There's still good communication between them. And so that was kind of interesting. It was like there's secrets, but they're still communicating. And I wasn't mad about that. It was a whole thing. And one of the really cool things about this book is the chapter transitions are so good. Very unique. I've never read a book that had chapter transitions the way that this one does. It was really, really cool. So I absolutely loved it. And it was a complete surprise 5-star read for me. The next book that I read is actually a library book. Look at me reading my library books, right? I landed on the square for Opulence, which had a whole bunch of different options, but one of them was a beautiful cover. So I picked a book that I thought had a beautiful cover because I do love these covers a lot. So I picked Shipped by Angie Hockman. I really like this cover. This is my favorite color of blue, and it's tropical, and it's got the, the illustrated covers. I really, really like these. They always catch my eye. So I went ahead and picked this one. This is also nice and short. This book is described as being the hating game mixed with the Unhoneymooners, and I would 100% stand behind that. This is two people who are working for the same company, and they are both up for a big promotion. They both want it really, really badly for their own different reasons. And their boss decides, okay, they work for a cruise ship line. That's the company that they work for. Their boss says, okay, you're both up for this promotion. We're going to send you on this cruise. Whoever brings me back the better proposal is going to get the job. So they have to go on this cruise. Now, they're not traveling together to get there or anything like that, but they are both on the same cruise at the same time. And they're doing this whole thing simultaneously. Now, they hate each other. They do not get along. There's a lot of perception on definitely her part about his personality and the way he treats people. And so like that's a whole thing. And so you see them going on this cruise, they're going on these adventures and, you know, going on these excursions on islands and stuff. And you see them get to know each other better. You guys, it was so cute. It was so cute. I really enjoyed it. I did read this really quickly. I will say, however, towards the end, I was kind of over it. I think like the ending kind of dragged on a little bit, like after they were back from their cruise and there were things that were happening in the workplace and all that stuff. While I really enjoyed what happened, I felt like it could have been condensed a little bit more. It just kind of kept going and going. I would have actually liked a little bit more on the cruise versus having so much at the end in the workplace. Although it did tie it up nicely, I think it just could have been like, I just wanted a better balance of that, I guess you could say. So there is that, but it was fun and I did really enjoy it and I gave it 4 stars. And on that one, I actually ended up rolling a double. So I rolled twice in the same video clip and I landed on last color. So that means whatever book you previously read or just finished, pick colors that are similar on the cover and pick another one. So I picked another library book. Guys, let me tell you. So I picked Before the Coffee Gets Cold. This is by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. This one has like the blues and the browns and there's some white and there's a black cat here. There's black on the cover. So that's kind of how I went with this one. And this is an adult science fiction and it follows a cafe in Japan where if you sit in a certain seat, you can time travel. You have to go in, you have to be able to get into that seat, and you have to be presented with a special coffee, and then you can time travel to where you want to go, but you only have as long as the coffee is warm. Once the coffee goes cold, you have to be back. You have to finish the coffee before it gets cold, basically, and that's how you get back. And if you don't, there's like circumstances for that. So this is short, and it's actually it was broken into, I think, 4 different parts where it was 4 different people who were time traveling. They did kind of interweave together as well, which I thought was interesting. I will say that I thought the writing was a little repetitive. So there are certain rules for if you're going to be time traveling, you have to follow certain rules. And I could tell you all of those rules by heart right now because they were mentioned so many times and gone over so many times in this book that I was just kind of like, if I could see that it was going into the rules, I kind of skipped those paragraphs because I already know all these rules. So there is that. It was a little bit repetitive as far as that goes. And for such a short book, I don't think there should be repetitive writing in it. You know what I mean? I did enjoy the characters. I enjoyed the stories and how they went and how they kind of interwove together as well. But something about it just, I didn't completely fall in love with it. Maybe I hyped it up a little bit too much in my head because so many people have said that how much they love this book, and I just thought it was fine. So I thought it was good. Again, writing was a little repetitive, and I definitely went, like, while I was reading it, I wasn't super into it. I even put it down for a few days and didn't go back to it again. And then I picked it up and, was like, I felt like I was kind of pushing through it. So I gave it 3 stars, but I did read it. Okay, guys, those are all the books that I read in the month of September. That was really good. It was a really good month. And I'm glad I was able to just kind of finish up a couple of books as well that have been sitting on my currently reading for way too long, but I was able to finish them. So that was awesome. And I read 2 library books. So yeah, it was good. All right. So that was a good reading month. I'm gearing up for October now. Whole lot going on, but I'm into things, so I'm excited about it. Let me know down below if you guys have read any of these, what you thought. Are you going to pick any of them up based on what I said, or maybe not pick any of them up based on what I said? Let me know that too. And let me know what you guys enjoyed reading in the month of September. I'm really interested in that. And I will see you guys again soon. Hope you have a great day. Bye.